Hi everyone, welcome. Over here on this little shelf where I keep the newest of my worm bins, you can see that the original red wiggler worms that used to sit out here with nothing next to them now have a neighboring pair of bins. So I had built these systems more than 2 weeks ago already, and they were just off on the side, but I figured I would start trying their position on the shelf out for size here, because they're going to be occupied soon, but not yet. So in the meantime, until that happens, my original red wigglers are still the babies in the wormery. 31 days of age today, fed 3 times so far. We've been in roughly 10-11 day intervals. So after the initial launch of the systems 31 days ago, we came back after 10 days, then there was an 11-day pause. Now it's been 10 days again. So we're going to get them up on the bench, see how they're coming along, and I've got some food for them. So let's get to work. The majority of the information on this board has already been shared with you in my little intro, but the bin population estimates that you see over here are numbers that I didn't really have on the tip of my tongue or committed to memory, but it's been a month now, so I figured it was about time to start announcing what's thought to be the population, estimated population of these systems. So bin number 1, 2253 worms thought to live over here, and over here in bin number 2, a slightly larger number of worms, 2488, almost 2500 worms. And I believe that the way we arrived at those estimates was with my guess thrown in the hat, and that number averaged with, I believe, at least half a dozen people, which was really cool to get half a dozen people's input on what they thought we had as far as worm population here. So alright, well, this is unfortunate when you find a deceased worm. You know, that's sometimes people ask me, why do you go to the trouble of making sure that the opening on the bag is facing up like this every time? And the exact reason is that I don't want worms, being drawn to any sort of moisture that might collect in here, which is now technically already part of the inside of the bag, and then they wander into there where it's completely dry, and that becomes the end of them. So my little thing to try to prevent exactly that didn't seem to work on this go around, but for the most part I believe it is a pretty effective way to handle it. So I was wondering how we would do as far as these leftover top coverings that we're feeding. In fact, 2 feeding zone indicators showing us where we last fed right there, as well as that nice top covering of newspaper. I guess we've built such a nice cozy place for these worms to live that they're not really bothering with any of this stuff out on the surface. Perhaps we gave them such a tempting meal last time with those banana peels that they're just so busy gorging themselves on the yummy food that they're not coming up to see what's happening on the surface. Or who knows, maybe they need more moisture on the surface. That would be my first guess. Maybe this stuff, even though it feels a little damp, might not be damp enough. But really quick, let me just show you what I got for them. I got some yummy foods here. Potato peels I see carrots, chunks of cauliflower I believe, and also little fragments of banana peel, as well as a banana stem right there. So I figured if we cut this in half and give each system half, that should be a pretty nice portion. So I watched the last video from our last check-in, and I thought we would follow suit with what we did previously, which was to take all this nice leafy matter that's out on the surface and incorporate it down into the system. But sometimes it is good to think a moment before you pull the trigger. Maybe it would be nice to add just a touch of water to this leafy matter before we do that. I just have a funny feeling that that's just going to work to our benefit. I'm even thinking that perhaps at the end, when I plan to introduce even more of this nice leafy matter as a replacement for what we just blended in, perhaps we can even give that a little shot of moisture if it seems sensible to do so. And before we blend stuff in, it wouldn't hurt to take a peek at what the material down underneath looks like and how the worms look. It doesn't look too heavily populated, but as far as moisture goes, it seems like it's probably at a moisture level that the worms would consider comfortable. So, whatever the reason, I don't know. Perhaps it's just such a delicious, tempting meal we left for them 10 days ago. Perhaps they're all still just very busy down the middle in the feeding zone, working down whatever remains of the last meal. Okay, Here too, it feels like I'm just getting right into the stirring in of the new bedding. Or, well, not new, it's been aging for 10 days in here, but I'm still a little surprised. Sometimes when systems are this young, still, only a month old, sometimes it is a little bit difficult to actually distinguish the worms from the material that they're inhabiting. You know, once a system gets pretty old and it's really down to almost castings only and it's all black gold, the little pink wormies are pretty easy to spot against the black gold, but you know, black gold, I'm referring to their castings, the vermicompost. But in this type of situation where you got a lot of material that still has a fairly light color resembling the worms almost, they blend in pretty good, and you're probably looking at a whole bunch of them and just not entirely noticing it because they blend in so good. Man, I feel like I've just added so much moisture, but somehow it feels right. And gosh, we're already 5 minutes into this check-in and we've not even excavated the feeding zones yet. Man, I sure made a big mess around the edges, didn't I? But that's okay. Let's dig in. I do remember that these systems were launched a month ago, not only with worms from their old home, but they brought with themselves a number of slow composting objects like that pumpkin stem right there. I'm already starting to see some of the bedding that I dropped down in as the foundational bedding to put in underneath the foods that we gave them, and now I'm starting to see some banana peel, and I think now we're starting to get a sense of where all the worms are. They're not on the outskirts because they're in the feeding zone. Diligently working down our banana peels that we left for them last time. Yeah, looks to me like they're doing quite a number on this last feeding that they got. These banana peels were fairly large. I think each system might have received 2 or maybe just 1.5, but something in that neighborhood. So that's a pretty good, generous feeding they got last time, but eventually that fairly soft stuff is going to get stripped clean of the banana peel. And when it's really just down to that fairly fibrous peel itself and the stem, they'll keep working it, but that stuff will take them longer to get done. So I do believe that even though we're finding what appears to be a good amount of leftover food here, adding more today does seem like a good way to play it. Now, in bin 2, I would assume we're going to find much of the same here. And right off the bat, we're finding another pumpkin stem. And eventually, I'm sure we're going to encounter some banana peel. Here we go. We do have that estimate that says that we're probably dealing with a slightly bigger population, meaning maybe we would see a difference in the amount of food that they've managed to break down over the past 10 days. Maybe it's negligible, the difference. Alright, so I've really done a number on these feeding zones, just excavating the heck out of it. But I mean, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to dig in, make space, and give them some more chow. Another pumpkin stem, so we'll be sure to return all those in-progress items right back down where they were into the feeding zone so they continue to get the attention that they deserve so they can keep getting worked down. But like I said, I want to follow suit with what I did last time, which began with just a little bit of bedding as a foundation, and I don't think we have to go overboard because, as you can see, these systems are still quite well stocked with bedding material. And you know, at this point, why don't we just try to take into account the courtesy factor here and not drop a bunch of frozen material right on top of a bunch of worms. Now that we've got a bunch of just freshly added bedding here, that's probably the best place to apply all this frozen stuff. And now, usually I like to just put the grit that I give the worms right into the food as well. Chances are that they're gonna go for that pretty quickly. And I've got some sawdust. I've been doing some little construction jobs, very little, just little hobby sort of stuff. Mostly in the wormery. Yeah, see, that stuff goes a long way. I don't want to use too much. because we still got to leave some space here for the leftovers. So I guess the whole idea of more bedding on top of the food was to once again act as insulation, so that as we bring in what we excavated, we're not dumping wormies on top of, directly on top of frozen stuff. I mean, ultimately they are going on top of the frozen stuff, but at least with this little cushion here, they're not in direct contact. So that's my attempt at being courteous. My, how they love the banana peel. Okay, I can see on my remote control for the camera that the battery's complaining, so guess what, I already had the camera stop once before, so I'm just trying my best to hide it. I'll see how I can do with that in the editor to make that seem less of an intrusion on our fun check-in here, but we are close enough to the end here that I think we could just barrel to the finish, return all these top coverings. But you know what, I'm going to skip the application of the leaves that I was hoping to top dress with at the end, because I didn't bring them out. They're up on the shelf, and getting them wouldn't be a big deal, but those couple seconds difference might be just enough to help us outrun the battery pooping out and letting us get to the finish line before it shuts off again. So thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.